Hello and welcome to this session where we are reviewing the Executive Insight component of the Autoscholar Advisor system. So this component helps us review the whole institution, looking at the coursework and looking at the academic programs, helps us understand the performance and identify trouble spots where there might be more resources required. So it helps us direct attention to the spaces where we have the best opportunities to improve the overall graduation rate. So looking first under the dashboard section, you'll find there are these 5 main elements to look into, and the settings here help us control the report that we are going to receive. So it sets the criteria for evaluating particular parts of this, and of course you see the results on this side. So first, looking at course information, and this is really just course counts. So it tells us that there are something like 4,000 courses in this institution, and that there are on average 87 students in each course. It also tells us that there are almost 1,000 courses where there are fewer than or equal to 5 students. So almost a quarter of all the courses at this institution have low numbers of students, and then the raw data for that is shown here. So this is a live table. You can page around in this table, and you've got the course code here, and let's instead sort this by the number of students in that course. So we've got one student taking these courses, and we have to page pretty far into this before we find courses with 2 students. So there are something like 350 courses with just 1 student registered, and so on. So you can use this table, and it's got a live search feature here. So if you start typing a course code, then it will filter the list and show you the courses with that string, and so on. So you can use this table to easily figure out which courses have low numbers of students in them. If you go over to program information, then it's a similar concept. We have 382 academic programs at this university. On average, there are 124 students in each program. And by the way, I believe that's cohort. And we have almost 20% of our academic programs with fewer than 5 students in them. So 67 programs have fewer than 5 students. And again, you've got this live table here, and you can sort that according to students, and you can page through to figure out which programs have low numbers of students, or you can use the live search feature here to have a look at which programs, if you want to look at specific programs. So that's under the course information section. Then if we go over to time to grad, then we get the distribution of students across the programs, and we look at the number of students, the proportion of students that are completing in minimum time. So M here in the graph is for minimum. So M plus 0, that's the number of minimum time students. And then M plus 1, the number completing in 1 extra year, and M plus 2 in 2 extra years. So you can see here in 2013, we had this kind of drop off. So this number down here, 2013, is the year of entry of the students. So if you look at all students who entered in 2013, then there are 1,300 odd students that finished in minimum time. So it's showing us as a percentage here, 19% of the students who enrolled in 2013 completed on time. And a further statistic here is that the total number who, or the total percent that graduated in more than 1 year is 29%. And then the important statistic is 52% of students haven't graduated to date. So it's not exactly showing us how many students dropped off or were excluded, but just if you count up out of the total number that entered in 2013, more than half of them never graduated. So that's an important statistic, because just looking at this graph is kind of misleading. It looks fairly reasonable that you get a larger number completing in minimum time and then it drops off after that. But a key statistic is this 52%. So there's a missed opportunity here for graduating more students. You can also interpret this as severe subsidy losses. So there's a large subsidy loss here, and then there are also subsidy losses even among the students who did complete. Then there's more information given down here. So we are also plotting the number of students who did not graduate. So that's shown here as this kind of brownish bar. And then on this graph, we also have a certain number who do complete early. So I believe that would be from students who entered the academic program carrying credits from programs that they may have entered before entering the current one. So you've got some students that can graduate a little earlier, and then you've got the usual minimum time and minimum time plus 1 and minimum time plus 2. And then this is just the sum of all students who graduate in more than minimum time plus 2. So you get plus 3, plus 4, and so on. So that's shown here. So in this graph that shows more information, it's clearer that we have missed several opportunities for additional income to the institution. And the raw data for all that is shown here. By the way, DC year, that's degree complete. So that's the year in which the students completed the degree. And if you see a value of -1, that's for the students who still have not completed. So of course, only when you graduate do you get a DC year, and then you see here there's -1. We won't have students who completed, so -1 tells you that's the number of students who never graduated from that program. So that's what you can see under time to grad. And by the way, you can control the settings here, as I mentioned before. So if you look at the 4-year programs instead, and you can also change the first year of registration. So let's look at also 2015. And you can also specify the faculty and the college, and you can even specify specific academic programs here. Just use commas to separate the program codes. So if we click evaluate, then it's showing us for the 4-year programs, it's showing us we've specified the extra year 2015. And so we can get a sense for over time how these numbers are changing. You can see for the 4-year programs, the proportion of students who never graduated, that's slightly lower, but still the number is quite large. There are fewer students than for the 3-year programs, and you have a higher proportion of students completing in minimum time. And by the way, this one might just be because there are fewer years that have passed. So as you look at this later on, if you increase the number of years here, then there's less data available because in some of those years the students haven't been able to complete as yet. So for instance, here we have so the number of students enrolling at the institution, that seems to be fairly there is some kind of consistency there, but as you start looking at later and later years, there's less data available. There will be fewer students who will have completed, and that's just because if we are looking at 4-year programs, for the students entering from 2017 and later, they haven't had enough time yet to actually graduate. So these numbers actually go up in some ways. So that's how you can use time to grad, and you can specify, the more you specify here, the more closely you can look into specific areas to figure out what the statistics are there. Now we can look at programs at risk. So this is showing us which academic programs have or seem to have some issues with their pass rates. So first off, the overall statistics, we have 58 students per program. So in this group, remember, we can specify certain criteria here. So given those settings, we have 58 students per program, and there are only 15% of students who are passing in minimum time under these specifics, and 54% who never graduated, even though we are looking this time at 2015, and it's 2020 now. So these are similar statistics to what we saw under time to grad, but now we also have information about some of the programs here. So here it's saying that for this specific academic program, there's a low number of minimum time students, only 14%. However, the actual grad rate is as high as 40%. Here also a low number of students graduating in minimum time, and these have strong subsidy implications. So you get an alerting system here. So most of these alerts at this institution is about low numbers of students graduating in minimum time. And here's one with some other comments. So this program has a high rate of non-graduation, right? 88% have not graduated from this program as yet. Although if you look at this, there's a fairly low number of students. So I'm walking through this because these are all the types of, this is how you read it. These are the kinds of statistics that you pick up and you figure out whether it's a significant comment or not. Right, so you can page through your academic programs and identify issues, and you might want to direct more resources towards that to help resolve that issue. And then down here, you can also look at some of the correlations within the programs. So if we click on generate, then it's going to tell us that among all these programs that we looked at, we can consider the correlation index in terms of the minimum time. So if we look at the minimum time to graduate, how does that correlate, for example, against mean matric points? So here we are looking at all the students who are registered in all these programs, and each dot here is a different program. So in this program, for instance, there's a 42% of students who haven't graduated, and 25% are graduating in minimum time, and the mean matric points in this program is this value. So here we are trying to understand the average biographical characteristics of the students and its impact on the performance of the program. So our program performance in terms of the graduation rate and the minimum time to graduate fraction and so on, those kind of performance, program performance characteristics can be correlated against the characteristics of students registered in those programs. And so the characteristics do differ from program to program, and some of the variables shown here, some of the variables are shown here. So the mean matric points, the quintile, the gender, the race, so those kind of variables help us to understand the students in that program and the performance by those students. And if we understand this correlation, then we can think about identifying particular types of students that may need additional support, and so that's what that's intended to do. So we can look into those correlations. We can also page through the raw data around that. So for any academic program, we can pick up, we can see the mean matric results, the quintile on average, and so on. So with this, we can get quite a strong sense for the programs and their performance and the types of students in those programs. Furthermore, we can look into correlations about the students. So again, you can filter the types of programs of interest here, and then you can select, so for example, if you want to know in terms of the students who graduated and who did not graduate, so looking at all the students who registered in 2015 and by now have graduated, you can see in terms of gender, in terms of students who in terms of male students, there's an almost equal number of students who graduated and did not graduate, so close to 50%. And in fact, down here you can see the exact number. It's 52% of male students did not graduate by now. Whereas for female students, we have something like 63%. So girls are doing better than boys in this institution. And in fact, this is a well-known phenomenon. It's happening around the world. Women are performing much better than men academically. So that's in terms of gender. And then if you switch that to race, you can also see the number. So the number who graduated and did not graduate. So here in this institution, there are many more African students, and then down here you can see that the proportion, so the pass rate in terms of race is roughly similar, so all around the 55% mark. So I'm saying pass rate, but that's actually graduation rate. So about 50% of students only are graduating, and we saw that earlier. We saw 50% are not graduating, so that implies 50% are graduating. And you can see some slight differences among the race groups there, but in terms of race, there's not that much difference. In terms of quintile, you can see that the higher the quintile number, the higher the likelihood of graduating. And then you can see also at the lower quintiles, there's a roughly similar number of graduated and non-graduated students. And then at the higher quintiles, there's a larger proportion of students who do graduate. So you can select any biographical parameter here. You can do it in terms of language as well, although some of these variables don't have values. So you might have some language, like Chinese here has a very low number of students at this institution. So in those cases, where there isn't data, there might be some error messages. So just click on OK, and then it will show up. What data is available will show up here. So in this institution, you can see what is this? There are many Swahili students. Well, I don't know whether it's many. How many Swahili here? So there are about 200 Swahili speaking students, and their pass rate is, so there's quite a high pass rate among Swahili speaking students. Here, of course, you have English, so English speaking students. There is, anyway, you can look through home language here. There's marital status, if you like. Yeah, interestingly, among divorced people, there's a lower graduation rate, but that's actually just a very low number of such students, 66 students here. So anyway, I'm sort of talking a lot through this because that just gives you an idea about how to read these graphs. And of course, you've got the raw data down here as well. Okay, so in the dashboard section of Executive Insight, it gives you a quick overview of the performance across the whole institution and the numbers of people involved there, and helps drive attention to places where there might be opportunities for increasing the performance and for improving the subsidy rates to the institution.